are surrounded by stories every day. When we sleep, many of us dream in stories. Evolution has shaped our minds for it. We developed the skill to understand the minds of others at a very early age, and it is then that we become story-ready. Throughout all of human history, we have shared stories. It had always been more than just a form of entertainment. We have used it to share important knowledge, create a space to imagine, and at best inspire. As humans, we like to hear stories about real people with real issues and goals in a world with a growing concern about our and our planet's well-being. I'm an ocean conservation documentary filmmaker and NGO director. I use the power of documentary storytelling to share the stories of marine biologists and ocean conservationists, to inspire and motivate a positive change for our oceans. I try to integrate scientific knowledge into personal, emotional stories, because stories are all about emotions, and emotion is a key element to human decision-making, according to Professor Antonio Damasio and his colleagues. Scientific research, facts and figures are extremely important, but often harder to get access to and harder to understand for the general public, while stories are easy to consume and easy to remember. So let's jump into a story. The story of how a documentary film inspired me to take action for the ocean. I had just moved to a seaside town, and I was really excited to finally live by the ocean, as it had been my dream for a long time. And an exchange semester made it possible. I was walking through the streets of my new home, and I realized the trash in the streets. On the walkway next to bins, birds were picking on it. The wind was carrying it away. I walked a little further, and I saw the same thing on the beach. Trash on the beach and in the water. To be quite honest with you, that was quite frustrating to me, to see all of this trash in the natural environment. So I turned around and walked back to my dorm room. I wanted to know more about this problem, so I started my research. And one of the search results was a documentary film. And it did not only show the problems the ocean was facing, or how insanely beautiful it is under the water surface in the ocean, and how extremely important a healthy ocean is. It had this really emotionally driven story. I could see and feel why the protagonist was motivated and inspired to take care of the ocean. And I could also feel how emotionally frustrated he was seeing all the problems of the ocean firsthand. This documentary film inspired me to take action for the ocean and create my first ocean conservation film. So the next day, I started with the research. I read books and articles, I went to marine biology lectures of my new university, and I talked with the locals. From them, I found out about more problems that the ocean was facing in this area, like sewage in the water, that was making people that spent longer times in it sick, like surfers and swimmers. The more problems I heard about, the more determined I was to create this film, make people who didn't know about these problems aware of them, and hopefully inspire a positive change for ocean conservation efforts in this area. I looked for protagonists online and found marine biology students and surfers who shared their story of the ocean and their experiences and their love for it in the film. Back then, I didn't really know how to create a conservation film. I was an information design student at my home university, and at this exchange semester, I studied photography. I also didn't have a crew, I didn't have proper equipment, and I certainly didn't have the money for a film production. But nevertheless, I used the camera I had brought with me, which was a quite old camera with its kit lens that came with it many years ago. I used a cheap video mic, and I bought a soft plastic underwater housing, which you can imagine like a mixture of a Ziploc bag and a dry bag that you would take on holiday so your stuff stays dry. And when I was lucky enough, I could actually reach the right buttons I needed to switch the settings and press record whilst I was filming in the ocean. But all of that aside, I still created this film in the one semester I was living by the sea, and I did it alongside my studies. At the end, I showed it to one of my professors. And to my surprise, she actually liked it. We went on to create a public screening at the university. Articles were written about it, and she encouraged me to enter the film to film festivals, where it went on to be seen by people worldwide. This experience started a fire in me. From there on, I knew I wanted to become an ocean conservation documentary filmmaker. And now I am, all thanks to that one documentary with its emotional story that inspired me. But that was only my story. Let me show you a different example of the power of storytelling. Let's all think of sharks. What was the first thing that just came to your mind? All the important scientific research articles about sharks, or the stories of books and films? If you're not a marine biologist, a diver, or an ocean enthusiast in some kind of form, then you probably thought of the stories of films. One film in particular. Because stories are easier to consume and to remember, especially when they are told over and over again. And in this case, sadly, it made millions of people afraid of sharks. You see, storytelling is immensely powerful, but thankfully, it can be used for the conservation of our natural environments. As impact storytellers and conservation filmmakers, we always have to think of our audience. How will they react to our story? How will they feel about it? Because we definitely don't want to make our audience afraid of what we are trying to protect. We have to think whom we want to inspire and motivate to take action for our natural environment. Who do we want to bring from a state of being unaware to awareness, to engagement and support of a positive change? All of you can use the power of storytelling for nature conservation. It doesn't have to be through a documentary film. You can share your own efforts for conservation, for example, on social media, and share it with your followers and friends and inspire them to take action. Because now it is time for you to take action for nature conservation and use storytelling. Thank you.